Hey, welcome back, and hope that things are going well for you after our crazy spring has sprung again, and so here we are. But I just want to ask you, how are things going in your family, in your home, or in your inner circle? Maybe you're living by yourself and there's this quarantine time, but you're with other people, online or visiting on the sidewalks, whatever. But how are things going in your inner circle? Is everyone getting along all right? You know, even as Christians, we struggle with getting along at times. And there's an example of this in the book of Philippians, chapter 4. Paul writes a letter to the church in Philippi, and there's something going on between a couple of ladies that has gotten his attention. And so I'm just going to start reading in chapter 4, and we'll begin here with verse 2. I entreat Euodia and I entreat Syntyche to agree in the Lord. Yes, and I ask you also, Syzygus, a true companion, to help these women who have labored side by side with me in the gospel, together with Clement and the rest of my fellow workers, whose names are in the book of life. Now, Paul doesn't explain what's going on with these two, but they apparently have been longtime workers, missionaries with Paul. Probably they are Philippian, and he has built into their lives, loved them, helped them with their faith, has caused it to grow, but yet now they are just loggerheads here. And Paul says to them, listen, agree in the Lord. Now, what does that mean? I think what he's talking about here is that remember whose you are. Remember where you have come from. Remember how Jesus has saved you out of whatever the situation is, ladies. And you have labored together with me and with others, with Clement here. And Syzygus, help them see what is truly important. Begin there. Agree in the Lord that whatever they're doing is to be for him. Not for themselves, not for their own reputation, not for their own glory. Now, obviously, we all mess up, and nobody likes to mess up, and nobody likes to have their mess ups public. But here it is. And Paul's asking the rest, a couple of people anyway, or at least Syzygus, to come and help these ladies see what's going on and what really is important. Do you remember as a kid, this happened to me a lot as a kid, where it's either my parents, the coach, a teacher, and I've done something wrong, but a message is being given either to the rest of my brothers, to the rest of the team, or to the rest of the class, where the message is given, but the teacher, parent, coach's eyes are directly on you, directly on me. Has that ever happened to you? Yeah, don't lie. So this, I think, is kind of what's happening here for the rest of a little bit more along in the letter. And here's what Paul says. Now, something else I want you to know is that it's not uncommon in biblical letters for the author to give a list of bullet points, things to remember. He's not really able to expound on a lot of these topics because of time or whatever, but he's just listing bullet points. So we're going to read again, starting with Euodia and Syntyche, and see if Paul might not be speaking to the whole church, but he's looking at these two women. I entreat Euodia and I entreat Syntyche to agree in the Lord. And yes, I ask you also, Syzygus, true companion, help these women who have labored side by side with me in the gospel, together with Clement and the rest of my fellow workers, whose names are in the book of life. That means they're God's people. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I will say rejoice. Let your reasonableness or your level-headedness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And finally, brothers, now whenever you see that, He's not just talking to the boys. It includes men and women here. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. What you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. I think he's kind of looking at these two ladies while he's trying to address the entire church. And here's what he's wanting them to do. Look, agree in the Lord. The only way that you're going to be able to agree in what God has for you to do, and while you may be fighting it out right now, rejoice. You don't rejoice because of your circumstances. You're rejoicing in your circumstances. You are seeing that God is great. You are learning to be content with what you have, with where you are, with what is happening. Doesn't mean that you like it, doesn't mean that you don't want it to change, but you're learning to be content. And then Paul says, and the peace of God that passes all understanding will be with you. Then he says, whatever is pure, lovely, focus on these things. Where there's excellence in it, focus on that. And the God of peace will be with you. You see, here is what's very, very cool about being a believer in Jesus Christ, is that he doesn't just give you his gifts, he gives you himself. So if you're struggling and fighting and fretting and not getting along with the people you love the most, go back through Philippians 4. Read some of that again. Confess your sin to God. Lord, I'm so sorry that I've not been acting in the way that is honorable to you, and that I have forgotten about the peace that you give, and I have forgotten that you are with me. Because like Paul said to the ladies, the Lord is at hand. Let your reasonableness be known to all. Until next time.